All right, Minding Your Business community. Excited here. Episode number 201 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. We're recording this on Monday, September the 21st. And so, God, this month is just flying by. I thought August was just long as all get out. And then here we are in YB. We're just flying through September. We're going to be in the fourth quarter of 2020. And I know for some of you, you may be just itching to get through 2020. That's been a trying year for many of us, to say the least. In some cases, personally and professionally. In other cases, it's been a tremendous year. And you know, to say such. But I know some people want to throw away 2020. No, you don't. Every year is a great opportunity. And there are two people that exist. They're the people that see problems and the people that see opportunities within problems. And so you have to determine which one do you want to be, which one do you want to put your focus on? And so it's easy to find the problems, right? We don't have to, notice you never have to teach people how to find the problem. You never have to teach people how to whine and complain and bellyache. Has anybody ever taught a class? Have you ever seen a virtual class on how to whine? You never have. How to find the problem. Hey, this is Ron Brooks, and I'm going to teach for $1,000. I'm going to teach you how to find problems, right? You never find that guy, right? Because he doesn't exist. We don't need that help. Usually what we need help is the other piece, which is finding solutions and seeing opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so we want to talk about that a little bit today with our guest, which I'm glad that he's joining today. Paul Katzoff is joining us today on episode 201. He's the CEO of White Canyon Software. That's whitecanyon.com. Make sure when you get done listening to this podcast, you go and check him out and his entire team right there. But Paul, thank you so much for joining today on the podcast.
Thank you, Champ Ron. It's a pleasure to be here. We're huge fans of Minding Your Business, and to be on your show is something we're excited to do. So thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you, and I'm excited about this conversation kind of around your business, Paul, and around, data security. And, I was in the C-suite, so my background's in banking before, kind of starting my own practice. But, what's interesting is I learned a lot about social engineering, and I want to get into that and get some of your thoughts there, because I got a nice introduction into that leading a retail team in banking. And some of the advantages we found and some of the follies that we experienced with that. So we'll have a few laughs with that a little later. But, before we get to all that, first, let's learn a little bit about yourself. You have an interesting story and how you came up, to be where you are today. Sure. And I know our listeners are itching to want to hear that. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, thank you. Love to talk a little bit about kind of my career goals or career progression over the years. I started off, I got my undergraduate at BYU Hawaii in hospitality and tourism management, and went up and got my MBA up at Utah State on a scholarship, which was really good. Great university, great education. And I have to say, from the MBA, you take that understanding of what the owner wants, what the owner needs from a business. And I was looking for a job. Times were tough. This was 05, 06-ish. Yeah. And I took a job at White Canyon Software in the tech support department, working full-time, $12 an hour in a basement, doing just phone tech support for our WipeDrive product.
Awesome.
So, I hopped on there, and over time, I became a tech support manager, got promoted, and I was tech support manager for 2 or 3 years, and kind of, I don't know if I got bored with it, but it was just, you kind of get up to speed on how to do it. And they came to me and said, "Hey, Paul, we want you to move into sales." And I was like, "Oh no, I don't know what to do with sales. Like, that's sleazy. It's fine."
Right.
You get people that's just not me. Like, I'm just kind of a down to earth, straight shooter. I just maybe I'm a terrible liar. Maybe that's what it is. Like, it's not my forte.
Right.
But I wanted a new challenge. So I said, all right, I knew the product back and forth. We erased computers, servers, laptops, all that kind of stuff. I knew it back and forth. I said, okay, let me try it. I'll try it out. If it fails, maybe I'll go somewhere else, or who knows what will happen. So I moved into sales, and I loved it.
Wow.
Back in, so this is probably 2011 by now. Back then, the consultative selling kind of methodology had just come out.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that we work with are smart IT guys. So you're not trying to pitch them. You're not trying to like emotionally get them to make a decision. You're trying to provide the information and consult them and help them fix their business and get it working right, or whatever they're trying to do. In our case, erase computers. And just became a great fit. Like, I love helping people solve problems. I love working with them, understanding their business, staying in touch with them, connecting with them. I love that whole kind of engagement part. And then also I love the tech part, like just getting into the nuts and bolts of what they're trying to do, their processes, what's efficient, what's inefficient, what they need from us. It was really fun. And the best part is you do all this work, and then like 2 or 3 weeks later, you get this PO in your email as an attachment.
Yeah.
$15,000, $20,000. There's just this nice, here's a reward, here's work, here's a little reward. It was really fun. So, so I moved into sales. Sales was great. Actually started managing the team here at White Canyon for a couple of years. And just decided after a while that I wanted a new challenge. So I left White Canyon for about 2 or 3 years, went out in the real world, tried myself at software solution selling, which was great. And they had a kind of a change in executive leadership here at White Canyon about 3 years ago. And they reached out to me and said, hey, we know you have your MBA. You're with us for, almost 10 years. We really like you. What do you think about coming back in the CEO role? And I don't think anyone says no to that. I talked to them politely and discussed what they're looking to do. And I got me really excited because I knew the business so well. I also knew where we weren't at, the digital presence, the new internet, the new kind of Quora and Reddit, and the new way people were talking in the watering hole. So I got excited about it. I was like, well, I can come back to White Canyon and I can kind of take us into this, back then it was 2017-ish, right? 2018. I can take us into this new area that we're going into. So that was 2.5 years ago. So
wow. Yeah, that's incredible. And you kind of climbed the ladder. Did you know when you joined White Canyon that you would one day be the CEO?
Not at all. I mean, I had my MBA, so I want to become a CEO. You're like, I have an MBA, I deserve to be CEO. And you realize you need to go through like a decade or two of experience before you get there. But the MBA is a great training for it. So I had zero inclination it ever happened. And even now, my wife's like, I still don't understand how in 12 years.
Right. So, she's there with you every day. So she's trying to figure out what are they seeing you up there?
You? Just kidding.
Yeah, I love that, man. So I love that. And that's a great, just for kind of career advancement for those that are listening, that, you put in your time, you put in your work. I'm sure you had your end goal, kind of in mind on. And what's interesting, I had an interview last week that I spoke to this and it came up and it's very interesting. And you just kind of described it, Paul, which is you didn't focus so much on the title of where you wanted to be. Right. So it's not vice president, executive vice president, CEO. It's what you wanted to accomplish. Right. What did how do you become memorable? Right. And so that's what I hear kind of in your story is, you took the challenge of different areas. Right. So that's one. So anybody listening to this, you have to get sometimes out of your comfort zone. Paul did that in sales. Right. Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone. The other piece is, how do you become memorable? What do you want to accomplish? And so, Paul, you described, you saw the CEO opportunity as a chance to shape culture and the chance to move, the company in a direction where you have the vision to see, okay, this is where the marketplace, this is where people are going. Right. And so everything, is real estate. It's location, location, location. Right. And so where are the people located? Where's their attention going? What's their, how do they want to interact with their vendors and with companies? And so, how do you, drive the company and the people talent that you have there to that? And so, MYB community, I would encourage you to take that piece of the story and look to apply that. As Paul, really greatly kind of outlined in his story. It's tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are always looking for people with passion. Like everyone can go into the job every day, but if you have passion for your work, whether you're at Lowe's working in one of the aisles or whether you're a construction guy, driving a backhoe, people love the person with passion that enjoys it. And lucky for me, I love technology. I love business, and it was a good fit. I just love talking about the potentials, what we're trying to do, the new things coming out, and I think people see that. And there is some hustle there. I think one of my things is you have to be the grease. The grease is just this underrated, little element, but without a lot of things don't work. And I think a lot of the people that hype themselves up, that overtalk, that overpromise, they fall flat. I think overall, you want to go in every day, you want to hustle to your best energy level. You don't want to overextend yourself or burn out. But at the same time, you want to keep yourself going and be the guy that says, yeah, I'll do that for you. And they know, management knows when you're stepping out of your comfort zone or when you're doing things extra. They realize that, they see it. And the more you do it, the more valuable you become. And that just leads to professional chances or growth or opportunity. That's just how it goes with management. They're always looking for someone.
Yep, absolutely. And like you say, that passion, that dedication that you can exude and authenticity will always last and always has a place, no matter what the world's doing or what the marketplace is doing. And so, let's talk some about the company, Paul, if we can. Tell us about from a high level, what does White Canyon do? What do you do for the marketplace and for your customer? How do people find you? And, what's the value that they look for?
Sure. So we're in software-based erasure of laptops, desktops, servers, mobile devices, phones, tablets, anything with memory. We are set up to erase that device. Okay, so we're nothing new. IT has had data erasure since the tapes back in the 70s and 80s.
Sure.
5 1/4 floppy diskettes, 3.5-inch floppy diskettes, all that kind of stuff. So we securely erase all that data, that media. And nowadays with data breaches and the financial penalties from HIPAA and GDPR, we're in a really great place, better than ever before, because people have finally realized, A, data is important, and B, there's a financial penalty if I don't take care of my data. So that's really driven our business over the last 5 or 6 years. We've seen tremendous growth. Just some numbers, 44 of the Fortune 100 have used us or do use us, 23 of the Fortune 50 as well. I don't know the number on the Fortune 1000, but we just have a great little company here where we get big players calling us up saying, hey, we need a data erasure tool. You guys have the certifications. You're the leader here. Let's talk. What can you help us do? And that's kind of our little forte. It's really nice.
Absolutely. And for someone that was in banking 17 years, I could tell you that I remember going to a conference in 2017, the week after Equifax, right? The whole fiasco with Equifax. And of course, this was in DC. So every politician had their 15 seconds of fame getting up and ripping Equifax a new one, and any other, Target had their thing and whatnot. I remember being in the branch. I was a branch manager, and we had a local restaurant here in Memphis, Paul, that would never, really take data, security really seriously. Even when we would go and kind of, petition, upgrading some of their, security and that kind of thing. They had a major breach that was extremely costly for them. For many of the banks. I must have spent, I must have spent full days doing just affidavits on people's charges from their debit cards and that sort of thing. And so I say that to say, because it's so critical, whether you're an individual person, you just kind of started your company and you've got a desktop or a laptop or, an iPad, all the way up to, like you say, a Fortune, 50 company. That's calling you up and doing business. I could tell you, being there at the bank, we had, basements with, like you mentioned, floppy drives and those old discs, and those things all have data in it. They had, very sensitive information, social security numbers, addresses, date of birth, so all these type of things. And some companies and then some people in smaller businesses, and this, Paul, they just toss those things in the garbage, or they call the iJunk guy and he comes.
There's, the data erasure side is not a sexy side of IT. Let's be honest with you. And most companies and corporations have a room in the basement. It's locked or with a gate on it, and they just put in laptops, desktops, loose drives, servers in it. And as it gets fuller and fuller, they go down there and go, okay, we're going to have to process this eventually. Yeah. And you're exactly right. They either have someone come in and they take the devices and they either sell them to them or work out some sort of payment, or they shred them and destroy all those devices. They also will kind of get stuck and say, well, let's erase them before they leave our facility. It's too risky nowadays to do that. Right. And so these corporations are stuck in this weird area of something they don't like doing, but they have to do it. And now they need reports. Now they have accountability for it with the data security policy. And all of a sudden they're kind of working through the tenets of how do I do this properly, efficiently? What's the best tool out there? This is something I've never Googled before. Now I need to find a vendor or product. What do I do? And so it's a new day for a lot of these corporations for it. So it's fun.
Yep, you're exactly right. And it was around that time, around that 2017 for me, where I began to really see, businesses really take stock into that, like you described, Paul, that, we have to make sure, one, we've got, policy with how our people are dealing with it. We can't just hire an intern and say, hey, go shred this or go do, you know what I mean? Like, and hire some kid to just go do it. We've got to be serious that we need to reach out to vendors like, your company, to be able to safely and securely do that. And I saw that around that time where the light bulb really went off in a lot of leaders' heads and said, you know what, we really got to take this seriously. I mean, we can't just goof around.
Yeah, and there's two areas for it that people are going to now that we're stuck in the middle of. One is shredding or physically destroying your devices and wiping them. Okay. Yeah. To go through the right process, you have to get that laptop out. You have to go through a secure chain of custody. You have to erase it, and then you can resell that device for X number of dollars. A lot of IT managers for a couple of years now have just been shredding the drives in these laptops and desktops. So you're just having these devices that are now just shells or cases. They've lost their IT asset value. And I think a lot of IT managers are just kind of dumping them. And there's a lot of value there that's just kind of disappearing because they don't want to deal with the process rather than save, a $150, $200 laptop. They'd rather just kind of say, well, it's depreciation. We'll depreciate off our expenses. No big deal. Let's just move on with life. So there's a value there we're trying to save as well.
Yep, absolutely. And so how do you and your company tackle that when, a company kind of has that mantra or mindset? How does your team kind of work with them to maybe encourage them, instead of salvaging, 100 laptops that are sitting in the room, again, depending on the age of them, of course, and that sort of thing, how do you, maybe compel them to say, why don't you wipe them and then, either donate them for charity or maybe use them with some of your salespeople, maybe use them in training and development. Some other areas within your organization where you could use technology. It may not need to be the most up-to-date, type of thing, but, they still have great value either internally or in your community.
Right. Well, funny enough, we have a local financial institution here in Utah that we just talked with them and they're saying, hey, we shred everything. And I'm like, all right, well, what do you shred? And they're like, about 3,000 devices a year. I have a guy go in there and open up the laptops, take out the drives. He puts them in a big bin and we shred them all. And I'm like, well, what do you do with the laptops? He's like, I don't know. To be honest with you, we just kind of dump them. I'm like, well, $150 a laptop times 3,000. You're looking at, some annual resale value, maybe not 150, even $75. You're looking at some resale value there. What's really nice nowadays is a lot of our clients don't want to be shredding it. They know that the nice metals, not nice metals, it's escaped me. The precious metals are recovered from it. The processes are there. But they know the rest go in the landfills. And you also have microplastics that are kind of getting out there into the environment. So there's kind of a nice push from our clients or potential clients saying, I really don't want to shred. I know where it's going. I know it's going to the landfill. I'd prefer to do something else. I want to be a part of the circular economy. I want to help, the industry overall and, the environment overall. So it's not a big push for us at all to kind of discuss that with them. I think on their side, it's more of kind of opening their eyes saying, hey, we can do this. How can we do it? What's the cost? What's the resale? What's the revenue I can get from this? How can I make this be not hit my budget? Because no one wants to hit your expense budget heavily or anything like that. But at the same time, how can they kind of mitigate those costs and still provide kind of a reassurance, hey, we're not, not destroying the environment, but not adding to this waste that's going out there, this e-waste.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point too. And I have seen that to kind of a little bit smaller scale, but I did see some of that too, where there's a little bit more of a fiduciary responsibility or duty that companies take to say, hey, we don't want to just add to, to waste out there. Right. And so, that's part of, the ability to think a little bit more critical and kind of salvage, at that point. Paul, let's talk also a little bit about, obviously, if you and I had sat down January 1st and said, you know what, Paul and Ron, I think we need to plan for a worldwide virus pandemic. I've got a hunch that there's going to be this, this going to turn the world on top of its head, and we need to bunker down, right?
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, wouldn't that have been great if I had been on your team and I came into the office January 1st and said, all right, boys and girls, Happy New Year. Here's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
We're all going to be wearing masks in 12 weeks, right? So obviously we have the COVID-19 pandemic that's going on. And I like this angle from your business and with your industry, because the change in behavior that this has impacted, some for the good, maybe some not as good, but kind of compare and contrast, your business there with White Canyon, how things were kind of rolling as you came out of 2019, Paul, and as COVID hit, where have you seen that, maybe in the mindset of your customers and prospects? Are you maybe seeing, the impact of the pandemic, changing the way they view, how they do business with you?
So it has affected different parts of our business differently. First off, the federal government and state government contracts paid us like 6 or 9 months ahead of time for renewals. So I think there's a mandate somewhere there saying, hey, let's pay all of our licenses up front to help these companies that are going to go through a downturn. Sure. Luckily, we didn't have too much of a large downturn. Our biggest hit was secondhand refurbishers. We call them ITADs, IT Asset Disposition Companies. They're the ones that buy the IT assets from the corporations. They refurbish them, and then you'll see them on Amazon as refurbished, or eBay and other sites. They'll actually use us to erase those systems. Well, all these ITADs have warehouses with techs in there processing the equipment. All of a sudden, no one could be, they're all quarantined. And so all that ITAD business just stopped for about 2 or 3 months. At the same time, we had the refurbishment market just go crazy, because all of a sudden everyone's at home. All the kids have to buy computers. All the parents had to get a new laptop. And everyone's like, do I want a new laptop or do you want a refurbished one? Right. When you bought a refurbished one, you actually took the inventory from all these ITADs. So by like June, the ITADs were running at like almost a zero inventory, and they were racing to get back into the warehouse, start processing systems, get them back up, because they wanted to keep selling their inventory. So it was a nice little state there. It wasn't a high risk for us or very volatile, which is very lucky. We're not like some of these restaurants and others out there that really got hit really bad. Right. It's tough for them. But on our side, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, in a little bit, but about the movement of data to the remote workers as well. But just the ITADs and the refurbishment market just kind of took off. And I'm excited for that part, because I'd love to see more of our equipment refurbished, reused over and over again. And then when we're done with it here in the US, let's say the processing speed isn't enough, maybe it goes overseas to third world countries or charities and others that need them, or school children that don't have a high need of processing and they can use a good computer. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Paul, kind of, along that line of taking in that direction. So, I'm certainly like a lot of parents these days. I'm working here. I'm operating from home. I've got, of course, my 3 daughters are in elementary school. Their school system, I think, did that. They've got iPads. They've got Google Chromebooks. I'm sure these were, they didn't get these brand new. I'm sure these were refurbished. So school system definitely contributed to diminishing some of that inventory that you guys work on, because I'm sure school systems, like you said, around the country, and thousands and thousands I've had to get these devices for virtual learning. And so, one thing that doesn't get, I guess, talked about a lot, and I haven't seen this, with our school system or many that's out there, is data security. That now you've got your, in some cases, certainly your K through 12, and then obviously you have college and that sort of thing. But, now you're at home and your first grader is on a device and is opened up to the whole world. Pop-ups can come up. someone can come and jump in from a social engineering standpoint and impact an entire network. Talk about that whole kind of work from home and virtual school kind of piece, the data security, and
Sure.
some of the things that we all should be, quite frankly, Paul, on the lookout. Whether we're there working from home or we're there and we've got a kid or kids that are on these devices. They're all on all day in some cases, and just some tidbits on what we should all be doing to kind of help manage that.
Sure. So the first part about this is just the data on the device when your child gets it. I have 4 children, so I understand exactly the issue.
You're right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they're young now. I have a 12-year-old and then a 6-year-old. So, and then a 2 and a newborn. So there's
wow.
So with the 7th grader and with the kindergarten, they have devices now for them. Like you said, they have Chromebooks and other devices. This is the first year of doing it. Actually, we're going into our 2nd year of doing it. So with all these school districts, are they going through and clearing off all the data off of these devices? You're having a Chromebook that a sophomore had last year, and it's given to a 2nd grader. Are there pictures on there? Are there videos? Are there text messages? What's on there? What kind of data is kept on that device, and how is it reset? A lot of these devices have erasure kind of reset tools in there. Do the school district reset it properly? Do their techs know how to reset these properly so that the data on that device is completely gone when it comes to your child? So that's the first test, is to go and check and make sure, either get reassurance from your school district they did that, or open up the device itself, browse around, get familiar. None of us want to do this, right? It takes time to go through folders.
It takes time to do that, right?
And, train ourselves on a Chromebook, which isn't fun, But at the same time, when we do this, we will go through and see if there's any data left on the device, and if so, where is it at, and can it be recovered? Can my child be exposed to it? Okay.
Yeah.
The other part of this is, you're exactly right. Like, what can the child view? Where can they go on the website? The internet, is it open? Is it closed? That's kind of per school district and per device. There are some limiting functions they can do on Chromebooks and things like that. I'd recommend anyone that's worried about it to talk to their children's teacher, to the school district, and kind of figure out what lockdowns they have in place. And if they don't, I would recommend just saying, hey, I'd like you to look into some lockdowns out there, because there's some limiting kind of software tools out there you can put on there.
Yeah.
There's always a way around it. Your 11th graders and seniors, they're working on things every day. VPNs, countries, you name it. They're working on ways around it. So it is a cat and mouse game.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I guess it's incumbent, like you say, on all of us parents, in that situation. Then we'll get to the kind of the work piece of it, but just, to kind of button up the school conversation there, Paul, is, parents, taking an active role. And I know that's a challenge, because on the work side, some parents aren't able to spend much time with their kids. They kind of make sure they get on in the morning, and then, that's kind of it. And they see them kind of doing stuff throughout the day. But I guess that could be a challenge for the parent that, has a, kind of more of a stricter role with where they work, where they have to be online, they're being tracked and that sort of thing, versus the parent has autonomy that can kind of, move around there at home and kind of, oversee and spend time doing those things that you mentioned. It could be a vast challenge. It is.
And there's ways around everything out there. That's what's great about computers, is you can do anything with them. At the same time, the bad thing is you can do anything with them. So I don't know if you can spot check your child or not. I don't know if the school districts put in some limitations, but definitely look into that. And if you have concerns, voice them. Hear what they say. IT techs can look out there and find software for pretty much anything. So if the school district demands it, the IT techs can push that out to all the Chromebooks, get them all updated, everyone onto something secure and safe. For 95% of the students out of work, there is that small contingent that will be working to get around it, or have a brother that's in computer science at, in college, and is like, hey, let me see your Chromebook real quick. Let me help you out.
Right.
For the most part, it should work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely should. And one of the things that I've worked with my girls is just one, making sure that it's updated. So I check, periodically to make sure, because again, my girls are, I've got 5th grade, 4th grade, and 2nd grade, so they're not they're not expected to be really a stew down keeping up with all the updates and all that type of thing. They just used to using the device and go. And so, checking to make sure it's update, making sure they turn it off when they're done. Not just leaving it sitting open. Just my youngest daughter, she's bad about, she'll just kind of leave it, just kind of sitting open unattended. She's got 20 tabs open on her browser, and she's, it's just like, come on.
Sure.
So there's that type of thing. And then just going through the history, just the browsing history, and looking at, that, because, sometimes, even for young people, they could type in an address thinking they're going one place and go completely another place. I mean, I know there's whitehouse.gov, and then there's another White House that has a completely different function. You could type something in and you're thinking you're going someplace, and then you're going to OnlyFans or something like that, and then or farmers.com or whatever, farmersonly.com.
Yeah, there's ads and links out there, and who knows where they're at. And also the content they're brushing up against and reading and seeing, the videos they're watching as well. There's a big concern there for, I think, anyone with young children. Just want to just limit and just kind of be aware of what our children are looking at and being exposed to, because there is some very negative or violent content out there they're not ready for at whatever age, and maybe later on they're fine with it, but it's something we all kind of deal with as parents for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And Paul, for those that are, obviously we talked some about, people that are there at home working, right? And so, what are some things that they should be looking for? So for the adults, right, that are at home, this may be new to them these last 6 months or so of, the pandemic. They're newly working from home, and they're using their devices all day, every day. What are some things that they should be looking for to make sure that their data remains safe?
So this what you're referring to, the remote workforce. First off, it's amazing to see so many people work remote right off the bat. So many companies say, hey, we're going to have a remote workforce from now on, period. Let's go with it. Amazing new change to how business is done and how offices are done as well. It opens up a nightmare for data security for chief data officers and CISOs and CIOs and CTOs. They're sitting in their offices going, okay, how do we manage this data? Because let me give you a couple examples. You go home, you hop on your home desktop, you have a VPN into your network at work. So you get in your virtual private network, so you're able to access your folders and everything inside your company. You open up those folders and then you save it to your home desktop. You open up on your local computer, you open up Excel, documents, other documents, you're going through them, you're reading them, you're working on them, you're sending them back and forth with your colleagues, and you're on your home desktop, which is on your home Wi-Fi, how safe is it? How secure is it? Is there a password on your computer? At end of life, are you going to erase your computer? If it's not your work's computer, you don't need to turn it back in. Do they have a right to tell you, hey, I need you to erase it and get back to us with a report? Or do they not have a right to do that because they let you do it? And therefore, they have no grounds to say, give us your device or we're going to process your home computer for you. Right. So just wherever this data trail touches, everyone is looking at this going, okay, we need to start updating our data security policy, because at some point, if we're not careful, we're going to get some data breaches. And it's going to be tied back to a home laptop or home desktop, or someone's network got infiltrated and they're able to then access the VPN that helped them get into our network, and they accessed everything, credit card details, personal health information. We have to report this to the federal regulation bodies. There is a big potential for issues, and a lot of companies are scrambling to get those data security policies in place to kind of help that. But from my understanding, it's still probably 3 to 6 months, even a year out before they get those, set up and working, and the training done and the rest done, so that they can kind of protect their data, which is, not an enviable position, to be honest with you.
No doubt about it. Paul, and it's interesting because, a lot of people, you think of salespeople, now operations people, like you said, that are working from home, but they're also doing personal things. So even if they've got their company laptop, they're also surfing Amazon. They're also, on Macy's.com. They're also emailing their friends and, chatting, and they're doing all these different things that, like you say, that opens things up. And you're right. The impact that, one individual could have now, where they're not under the controlled environment of being in the office. So it's the same thing. It parallels with school, how, if a school's got, 1,000 kids, but they were under one standard, because they're all under one roof. when those 1,000 kids leave the building and go home, now there's 1,000 standards, 1,000 kids, there's 1,000 households, there's 1,000 different standards. So same with the workforce. Now, when you send 50, of your employees to work remote, one standard now becomes 50, right? And so everybody's, like you say, Wi-Fi is at different levels, different security points. Everybody behaves a little different on their device. Maybe things that they wouldn't go to in the office, right? They're now more compelled to do at home. That can open.
To click on that link or go there and their Wi-Fi passwords 1 2 3 4 5 6 or
Right.
you know what I mean. It opens up a host of information that is just sitting there, or potentially sitting there, and these corporations are spending thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year to protect their network.
Right.
And all of a sudden, all their employees are no longer in their network.
Right. Exactly.
When you're the IT manager and you look over your CISO and go, "We're not protected at all. We have
right.
spent for the last 5 years is worthless right now."
Yep, exactly. Because everybody's VPN in and kind of going around that that server, and so so that creates very intriguing thoughts on what that looks like long term as companies, even now companies that are startup that go down that route of, hey, we can have all our people remote. We don't have to really even invest in commercial real estate with these servers and things like that. Just let people work remote. And what that means though for a data integrity standpoint, because now, like you said, a company spends all those millions of dollars and one Ron can click on one erroneous link and bust all that up, right? I mean, and to the point to where they get into the network, they get into the VPN, they get access to your core processing system. They get they're able to then extract a list of customer data that's got your name, your social security number, your date of birth, your address, even down to your preferences on what you buy, your buying history, potentially even your debit or credit card, although, that's a little bit maybe less likely, but could still happen. But they could get enough sensitive information to really do some damage. And
and the other part of it is that in the past, hackers haven't really targeted home users because the reward is little, right? I mean, maybe you're going to get some tax documents. Maybe you'll get a credit card information if you really attack people's home networks. But now that you have a greater source of reward, you're going to have more hackers and others kind of focus on that and say, wait a second, how can we get into those networks? How can we do that? And the biggest one right now is private health information. I mean, getting someone's, there's fines and regulations. I think it's around, it changes per occurrence, but it's around $5,000 to $50,000 per breach and per incident. And so just today I was looking up the Department of Health and Human Services are the one that manage the PHI kind of related incidents. They've had 33 this month that are over 500 individuals affected just in September. So these data breaches are going on, and the target has always been, all right, these large companies, but now if the employees are everywhere, you can target those and get in the door. And it could bring up a nightmare. It really could.
Yep, absolutely. And the thing is now I can see where that can happen, Paul, because now if you have the belief, you're unscrupulous and you have the belief that everybody's at home, what you could do is you go and you search LinkedIn and you find out who's the, either the CEO or, whoever that you think might be working at home, the senior VP of whatever, marketing or something like that you think is always going to be, might be a little more loosey-goosey.
Or for someone that has a VPN access, someone that's a hiring manager, or someone that's an HR rep or tech, someone that's going to VPN into their network and go, well, he's on a student network, at his apartment with like 5 other guys. How hard are they going to be able to hack this? You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to have the most in-depth password at all. So
and that's very true. Where you get to your maybe younger workforce that's a little bit more transient. It's not it's not like the person that's at home that's got top of the line AT&T or top of the line Comcast or whatever, and with all these security things already maybe embedded. Like you say, you get a person that's got maybe a lower scale Wi-Fi that doesn't have some of the firewalls and things like that. And like you say, they're like, my password's Apple 123, and then that's
Maybe they're at Starbucks. Maybe they said, you know what, I don't want to work at home. I'm going to go get some coffee. They're sitting at Starbucks on a shared Wi-Fi with everyone else.
Right. Yep, exactly. With with the public or actually private health files. They're in that industry, and then like you say, they're sitting at a co-working facility or Starbucks, and
the risk,
or even worse, though they're at the library.
There you go. Or they're logging into someone else's computer to do their work, and they don't log out. They don't close out the system, and so someone else has access to that computer, hops on it. Says, oh, look what I can do here. Let me search in some names. Let me search in Tom Cruise. Oh, they got health records in here. Oh, what else is there?
Right.
And also someone else is accessing things. And
exactly. And the impact that can have on a business when that's found out, and how and like you said, then you get into the minutia and the legalities of, was that a company issued device? Was it their personal device? And you imagine someone in court with a good lawyer is going to say, hey, wait a minute, you made me do this. This is on my device.
You dropped the ball. You didn't give me a laptop. I had to do it. You told me to work from home. I didn't have Wi-Fi. I went over to my friend's house.
Right. What do you mean? Yeah, exactly. So
you can't fire me. Why are you going to fire me? I did everything you told me to.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. So that's a huge impact, and that's a great dialogue for us to really dive into and really think about, is that data security piece. And along with that too, Paul, the I mentioned earlier about social engineering, and my kind of dive into that was I was at a bank. We had I had 96 employees, which is about 2/3 of the employee population that rolled up to me through retail. 10 branches, a 20-seat call center. And one of the things we would do is, twice a year we would have, and nobody would know about this when we set it up. I was part of setting it up, but we had a company that would come in and try to break us. And what they would do is, they'd send a guy or girl dressed up as a vendor, and some of it was physical stuff, right?
Sure.
They try to see how deep can I get into your company, right? Will someone let me into, private areas, that sort of thing. Yeah. And one of the first times we did it, we just bombed. This could have been Saturday Night Live, right? This was, a guy dressed up as a vendor. He just has on like a brown, suit with the name patched on the thing. Yeah. And, I had a teller that just let him into the building. She doesn't ask any questions. She just says, it'd be like hey, I'm here to see Ron. Okay, he's right up there, and then he walks in. So, and what he's doing is he's just taking pictures of what he can get into. And so he went into one of the executives' offices who had customer stuff printed on his desk, right? He had his computer. He didn't lock his computer, so he takes a picture of that. And so he actually got to the CEO's office. The CEO's office, his door's open, his computer's open, right? So he could have easily just sent out an email, said, hey, everybody go home, right? Or everybody's fired, right? Or whatever. Or worse, he goes, he could have typed up an email that said, hey, Ron, wire, 500,000 over to, Johnny over here, and I'll sign it when I get back, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, who's questioning that? It's coming from the CEO's office, right?
His email address, everything,
Yeah. And they would send phishing emails. They misspelled a couple things and send it out to see if people would send stuff back here internally. It was a cluster. They went out to a few of my branches.
I had data intrusion attempts. That's great. I love that.
Oh, I would have loved to have that job. it was a fun job. It looked to be fun. They went to one of my branches. They got all the way. They took pictures of cash just sitting on top of counters in the vault. While they're all busy running around with customers, here's $200,000 of our cash. It's just sitting there in the bag. And he basically just went in and said, hey, Ron sent me, I'm here to work on your ATM. They're like, okay,
I love it.
One of my branch managers, of all the people, one of the branch managers gave him the badge, the security badge that lets him get anywhere in the corporate, plus at that branch. Just here, if you need, I'm gonna be busy, so if you need to get back here, here's my, here you go. They didn't look at any ID. He didn't sign anything. Again, this is just a complete cluster. Completely. If this had got to the public, it would have been a complete S show.
And how and that's the thing with business. People get used to just doing the minutia, the day in, day out. it's no big deal. Okay, it's a new guy. Just give it to him, whatever, call it good. I got other things to do. You're right.
Yeah.
You got to stay sharp.
Yep, exactly. And one of the things that we did to correct that, Paul, was, of course, internally you have to put, it's not so much reprimands, but you got to put kind of policy and procedures in place. And so we were able to do all that. And one of the things that they were able to do is they were able to get into the server room where the IT area is, which is normally locked down to just IT people. It was even locked down to executives. We couldn't just, we had to, get, not say permission, but someone, you had to give a reason on why you need to go back there, because there really wasn't a need to really have to go back there. But he was able to get right to the server room where he could have, cut a wire and cut us off for a few days, right?
Or if you had a USB, you could put a USB on there, run something on there that connects you guys to something else and downloads your data or erases everything right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had 160,000, customers, customer unique records at a minimum. And so you're exactly right. I mean, there's a lot of things that could have been done. And so anyway, I just say that because it's so relevant to what you're saying, because, it really opened me up my eyes. Like, I mean, this is, why are we not spending more time and effort on this? I mean, I know we do all this other stuff and that's great, but there were devices. So we had stacked up to the ceiling, just old devices that, were just sitting there. Who knows what's on any of them, right? I mean, you don't know if there's customer data. You don't know if, someone has got naked pictures on there. We don't know anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And every year it's stacked there, the value of it drops. It drops until it's just pennies and it's not worth anything. And you kind of just said goodbye to free money, is what you said.
Right.
I mean, but yeah, it's there's lots of corporations in that same position. I love intrusion attempts and attacks and things like that. I think that's really, as an IT manager, what you need to do is kind of open yourself up to see your vulnerabilities, because it's embarrassing. And I don't envy anyone in that position to say, okay, come in, see if you can get through, our security protocols and get access, because when they do, it looks on the IT manager, it looks like it's on you. And I think they have to remember that's not the case.
Right.
They're implementing a data security policy and training and things like that. And the environment's always changing. Techniques are always changing. As an IT manager, you kind of have to give yourself not a pass, but just say, you know what, I have to constantly improve. These are methodologies for me to learn what our weaknesses are and improve it. It's not a recommendation of whether I'm doing my job well or not. It is actually just keeping us up to date and keeping our team sharp on our training, our data security, all of that, because there's a little bit of ego there. I commend you for doing it, because I know a lot of corporations that don't want to do that because they don't want to know the answer. And I think those are the ones that end up with the billion, data breaches and things like that. So
right. Yep, you're exactly right. They may not want to know the truth, and so they avoid that. And we knew we had gaps. We just wanted to see how big they were. We didn't know they were Grand Canyon. We thought we might have a pothole or something like that. But it turned out we had the Grand Canyon, and we had to.
There'd be somewhere you're like impressed, like, okay, good. Phew,
right.
That door was locked. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It'd be all bad.
But you're right, Paul, in that point of it wasn't a point your fingers at anybody to say, oh, this is your fault or this is that. It was all of us. It was us as an organization. And so we had to work on the solution together. So as we got together as leaders, we kind of started down that path of, well, your people and your people and and we quickly had to say, hey, guys and girls, we're not going to get there, by pointing missiles at each other. We've got to be able to work this together. Right. Yeah. So we've got to put these, different things in place. And of course, me running retail teams, we were always front and center because I had the youngest workforce that's kind of out and remote. Right. And so they were they were kind of deer in cages. They were easy to kind of pick on as opposed to the people that are there that are a little older, that are kind of in the back office sometimes. But
Right.
I was always a little sensitive to that, but yeah, we had to work on that. What we did for our devices, what we did for, with people, and making sure that they lock things up, making sure that people don't have customer printouts, left behind on their desks, that the office doors are being locked. And then the big thing is when vendors come in, how they're being questioned. And are you making phone calls to verify? Are you verifying ID? Does it look legitimate? Are you calling the company? Hey, is Ron really with you guys?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And we improved, on subsequent efforts. We got, pretty good. We would have some blips every now and then, but
Sure.
no, we got pretty good. But yeah, it's
it's tough. Like the one good thing is that there's probably a competitor of yours that was worse than you, right?
Yeah, without question.
Out there that bombed it even more than you guys did, and hopefully you guys fix it. Now you're more on that area of those that are doing a great job.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. And so, Paul, let's a little more personal for you as we talk through all the kind of the business stuff. You mentioned having your kids and that sort of thing with your wife. How important is family to you with what you do? I mean, you've come up through the ranks, you're running an organization. You look to be a pretty young guy. You've got, a lot of your career stuff, still ahead of you and things you want to accomplish, I'm sure. But what's the, just the importance of family and how they've supported you in what you do?
Yeah, I mean, 100%, I think, and everyone has their own kind of motivations, their own passions, things like that, But once you have a family and children, what I've found is that it's your work life and your desire to have fun kind of changes. Before you get married and have kids, you're kind of like, well, I want to work this much, I want to have fun this much. Let me enjoy my life. I don't want to do work here. And well, maybe I did. Maybe there's others with a different balance than I did.
Sure.
But as you get married and have children, that kind of changes. You're trying to provide for your children, provide that kind of home life. You're also somewhat, you kind of realize, I don't know if this is a negative term, but you kind of realize you're in a race for retirement, that everyone that's working is doing so that they can retire someday and get to a certain point they want to get to for the most part.
Right.
And so how you do your investments, how you do your 401k, how you spend your money or not spend your money, how you invest it, all kind of ties into this kind of, your earnings and revenue every year. And for me, just that family part of it, I understand the race, I understand the motivation, the money, and all that kind of stuff. That's very great. But overall, it's the family that makes it all worthwhile. If I was working 85, 90 hours a week with my 3 little kids at home, that'd be really rough, because I know this certain part of their life, it's about being there and being with them 2 or 3 hours a day, just playing, getting down on your knees.
Yeah.
The other part about having little kids is you never, it's like yoga every day. I never do the things I do with my little kids. Like I'm on the floor doing horsey rides, or they want me to do a somersault. When was the last time a grown man did a somersault? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know. And so handstands or everything. I love that part, because it's so, their viewpoint of the world is so different than mine. And you want to nurture them and raise them in a way of security and safety. At the same time, you do have bills, you do have a job. I understand the stress and pressures there. For myself, I try to balance them out, and I try not to, I had one of my coworkers call it future trip, where you're just future tripping on potential calamities or future tripping on negatives. Instead, just stay in the moment, enjoy it, prepare yourself. So if a quote unquote calamity happens, you're in a place where you have some money saved up so you can make it through the next job, or continuously working so that you can find another job, that your skills are sharp, that you have very little concern or fear that you can get another job. If you put that yourself in that situation, I think for myself, my anxiety, the future tripping goes down, and you actually make yourself very secure and very happy with your life and what's going on, and you can enjoy those little moments even more. Yeah. And that's what I've done. I don't know. I'm sure there's people out there with more effective approaches, but that's the best I can do.
Yeah, no, that's definitely tremendous. And Paul, I guess a few things before we wrap up. For those that have their business, depending on the size of it, what's a good prospect, I guess, for you and your company? I know you mentioned working with some of the Fortune 50 and,
Sure.
100 and 1,000. Does, someone with a, really small business, 2 or 3 people, is that someone that, would be able to do business with your company, or would they need to be at a certain size?
We want to help anyone that's concerned about the data on their IT assets. That's our job. So whether you're 3 employees or much, much more, we want you to have that kind of peace of mind saying, okay, we've got these IT assets. They're going to leave our facility. They're returning off lease, or we're decommissioning them, or we're reselling them, or even donating them. We're going to use the WipeDrive product. It's going to erase all the data on these drives. We're going to get a report back saying all the data is gone. I can then let that device leave my facility, and I have that kind of peace of mind and reassurance that all my data is gone. That's what we want, regardless of your size. If you're a dental office or just a small community bank, whoever you are, we want to be that tool that you kind of say, hey, I love this tool. It's simple. It's easy to use. The guys there are great. They're out there in Utah. We love them, and I can trust it. And that's really what we're going for with our product.
Yep, that's awesome. And so that's whitecanyon.com, MYB
Right.
community. Go there, peruse the website, learn a lot more, and connect with Paul and his team. And then let them know that you heard Paul right here on the Minding Your Business podcast as you reach out and look to have your data security questions and needs fulfilled. So as we wrap up here, Paul, because this has been a tremendous dialogue, I've learned a ton. It's been very fun. Which is always good when you can associate fun with IT. Anytime you can do that, that's always fun. That's always a good thing. Yeah, but data security for sure. What are just, you gave some good nuggets kind of personally on your rise on your career. Paul, what are just 1 or 2 good best practices that you kind of hold on to that work well for you, that you think will work well for someone listening to this podcast, such that, something they can take away that when they're done listening and they go back to their world, right, whatever their world is, something that they could say, I can be a little bit better if I, do this.
I had mentioned it earlier at the very beginning, which is kind of be the grease. Don't you be the person that's there at 8:00. Be the person that goes to lunch at noon, that comes back at 1 and goes home at 5. Be that person. You will impress management and get farther in your life by doing the little things and anything else. I mean, there's a few people out there that become, they do a huge deal and they blow up and all this stuff. But day in, day out, every manager is looking for someone they can trust. And that person that's doing the little things, they can trust are doing the large things. So what my recommendation is, if there's ego attached to it or anything like that, let it all go. Just stick to that schedule, do your work, do a good job. Always apologize if you make a mistake. Cop to it, say you didn't realize you did, or whatever that situation is, but just be that kind of have high integrity with what you do, and don't worry about the future. Don't worry about pizzazz, anything like that. Just be that day-to-day employee, and you will go far. Every manager loves that and wants that. I guarantee it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to use a baseball analogy, it's you can go to the Hall of Fame hitting singles and doubles. Right. We always think that you got to be the home run king. Right. That's kind of what you're saying. There are plenty of people in the Hall of Fame, in the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, that got there by just getting on base. Right. And that's kind of what I call that is, every day you're getting on base. You're
be the biggest grinder there is and keep it going. Yeah. And everyone just look to you as an example, like, hey, Paul's always here. Man, that guy, he's bringing it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. You're present. That's a lot of my career was like that. I was present. I was willing to, when banks would go through mergers and other people were kind of griping about, this is the 20th merger. I don't want to go through this anymore. I was the one that saw the opportunity and said, hey, these are chairs that are going to be open, but I've got to position myself to be there. And, I got started early in banking. I was in a private banking, office. And, I showed, the executive, and again, this is early 2000s, I showed Paul, the executive team, just how to print, paper on both sides. They thought that was amazing back then. It's like because I brought a package in for one of their meetings. They were like, hey, can you print this up? And it was so thin. They were like, well, what the hell did you do? Where's the rest of the packet? I was like, well, no, it's just front and back.
Right.
Like, this will just save you a ton of paper. And so he was like, show me how you did that. And so I showed him, on that old, Xerox machine, just I print front and back. So it makes you're not using as much paper. And, I couldn't put numbers to it. I wasn't, I'm a kid, right. But I'm like, hey, Mr. James, this is bound to save you X amount and just order, in your paper orders. He's like, you're right. So I just became, like you said, memorable. Right. And just, so you're there, you're doing all your job functions, but you're showing this additional value. And then you're asking the right questions and that sort of thing. So it's just being engaged, like you say, and just be willing to get on base. Whereas a lot of people are always, it's like in baseball again. Usually big home run hitters strike out a lot, right?
Yeah.
They usually don't have high averages, so they might have 60 home runs, but they bat 220, 230, whatever. Whereas the guy or girl that might hit 300, who's just getting on base. But you're constantly doing that. You're not swinging so hard. You just want to make contact. And like you say, you'll hit foul balls at times. You'll get out, things like that. You'll strike out. And like you said, that's where you have the integrity and you own up to it. Here's what I do different next time. And you move forward. And like you say, when you exude that type of integrity, whether you're in the workforce and or in your own business, that's what people look for is they have to, it's all trust and confidence. Right. People have to have trust and confidence in you. So if you're sitting there and you're saying, God, I've been passed over for, promotion or, God, I really want to be able to move up a level and that sort of thing. Don't focus on the title and the money, focus on just being, getting on base. Right. And, they'll notice that, they're going to notice people and get trust and confidence in the people that get on base.
Yeah.
Right.
Your coworkers are always watching you. And you're always being tested. They wait to see if you come in from lunch at 1:30 or 2 o'clock, or if you're rolling in at 8:30 or going home at 4:45 or 4:30. They're all kind of keeping an eye and tabs on each other, and just do your best day in, day out. It's going to work out for you more than the other person. And if people have gripes about it, just ignore it and just keep doing what you do, and it's going to work out.
Yep, no doubt about it. That's just incredible. Paul Katzoff is our guest today, CEO of White Canyon Software. Make sure you go whitecanyon.com. Make sure you go there, MYB. I really want you to go there and check it out. So when you get done listening to this podcast, do that and then connect. The link will be in the show notes, so you can check it out right there. And let Paul and his team know that you heard them again right here on the Mind Your Business podcast. Paul, I kept you way longer than I intended to. But this has been a tremendous dialogue, and that's the reason why. And in all transparency, is I was really enjoying the dialogue, and it's great to talk data integrity and learn more about you personally. So,
thanks, Jeff. Pleasure to be on your show with you. Please have us back. Have me back. I'd love to come back and chat with you anytime. And thank you again. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, we want to get a date for that in all seriousness, Paul, because I'd love to, as we progress, we get through the political cycle and, we get into 2021. I'd love to have you come back on and kind of update us on how things are going with the company and, maybe, if you guys were hiring, things like that, there may be some people out there that, would love to, add some value to your business that are listening to this podcast. And if anything, just be supportive of, what you guys are doing. It makes a big difference as the world continues to evolve. So, thank you for what you and your team do. I think sometimes, that can go unnoticed. You're kind of in a thankless business, right? There's not a huge sex appeal. Hey, we protected our data. Great. There's no trophies on the wall for that, but that's it's kind of, I think of you guys kind of like, like the offensive line on the quarterback. Tom Brady's great, but if none of his offensive line decide to block, he wouldn't be that great.
You got to have the little, not the little guys. They're big guys.
Yeah, they're big guys, right? But they're very critical to success. That anybody that's a big football fan that watches on Sundays or Saturdays knows, or even high school football, the offensive line is critical. And if they don't do their job, it doesn't matter how great your running back is, your receivers, anybody else, you can have all stars. But if your offensive line is not there, so you guys are kind of the offensive line you protect to allow people in other positions to be able to flourish. And so thank you guys for that. And look forward to staying connected.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Jeff. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Take care.
Okay.
All right. So that was Paul Katzoff, CEO with White Canyon, folks. Listen, I'm going to get out of here. This has been episode 201 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Continue to support us. We really appreciate it. Subscribe, 5-star on Apple or anywhere else you get your podcast content. Allows us to continue to grow the Minding Your Business community. And let's support our guests. Make sure, again, you go to whitecanyon.com. Go there and share it with your friends, with your coworkers that you work with that are also working remote. Make sure you share that with them. And again, if you want to impress in your company, share White Canyon as a resource to your management team. Wouldn't it be great for you to be the one that you may not know if they're thinking about that, but maybe they are. And you can say, hey, I heard about a resource on a podcast I was listening to, and you may want to connect with these guys. And hey, that may be what opens the door for you for an opportunity is being able to share resources and that sort of thing. So, think about it that way from that perspective. Listen, I'm gonna get out of here. Remember, there's 3 things that unite us all, no matter how we look in the mirror. We all want to be a little better for ourselves, a little better for our families, and a little better for our communities. And so if we remember that with everybody that we come in contact with, then we'll all be just a little bit better. Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast.